Amazons, first appearing in, surprise surprise, Monsters and Amazons. They're the first expansion race to Dragon Dice because, maybe humans could be kind of cool in a fantasy game too. Their striking solid ivory with purple inlays set them apart from their predecessors, representing a bold new direction for this faction, elemental independence. This, combined with their incredible maneuverability, fearsome offensive capabilities, and flexible racial abilities, has kept them one of the most popular and most unique factions in the game.
Okay, so here's the deal with Amazons. Ever since their conception, they've been all about maneuvers and ranged attacks. They have fantastic range and maneuver distribution that's unique to them, which makes up for some relatively lackluster magic and defensive capabilities. I mean, yes, they have some magic, and yeah, they can totally hold their own in a melee, but traditionally, holding a defensive fortification and just lobbing a gajillion arrows has been where the Amazons always shined. But as of 4th edition, well, they have become one of the outright most aggressive factions in the whole game.
Key to the 4th edition success of Amazons is their racial abilities Javelin and Kukri Charge, which allows them to forego their maneuver roll and count maneuver results as additional results during ranged or melee attacks. Who needs defense when your overwhelming amount of offense prevents a counterattack? Well, the problem is that if you are moving from your reserves, you'll have to survive long enough to be able to make that charge, which is what makes them so fun to play. They have exceedingly nasty offensive strength, but to really lean into it, you'll have to be careful with your forces. Amazons work especially well when banded as a large, near unstoppable force, though by sending some scouts and using spells like Rally, your opponents will constantly have to worry about oncoming Amazon raids.
Speaking of flexibility, unlike most factions, Amazons have a third racial ability, Terrain Harmony. You know how I was mentioning how Amazons are kind of terrain ambivalent? Well, not only does Javelin Charge and Kukri Charge work on any terrain type, but when rolling for magic, they produce magic results of the colors of the terrain that they're at. This gives a huge array of options available to Amazons to plan out strategies, but it also means that you'll be doing a little improvisation depending on what terrains your opponent brings to the game. But enough about broad concepts. Let's talk about a couple banger units and race-specific spells.
You have really powerful melee monsters like Hydra and Chimera, which are both tough to kill and deadly combatants. You have the Spearer, who pound for pound is one of the strongest range units in the game, especially with the special action icon Bullseye. Speaking of SAIs, we can't forget about War Driver, a 3-point unit packing trample which generates both maneuver and melee results during any roll. Remember the Kukri Charge racial ability that's new in 4.0? Yeah, that means rolling trample on these puppies during a Kukri Charge is 6 hits or just more chances of success during a Javelin Charge. These really capture the flexible nature of Amazons. As for racial spells, they aren't particularly flashy, but Rally doesn't need to be flashy because it's so incredibly good. For 5 magic, move 3 Amazon units from a terrain to another where you already have presence. While not as cheap as Path, you get 3 times the units. Furthermore, you have the unique capability to recover minor terrains from the buried unit area. Again, Amazons show their strengths: flexible, functional, ferocious.
So since their debut, when I was picking up packs of Dragon Dice with my allowance at Bosco's Comics in Eagle River, Alaska, Amazons have really been one of my absolute favorite factions. Nimble, flexible, dangerous, and the smart changes in 4th edition accentuate the fearsome aggression and flexibility, making them a formidable opponent in almost any situation. While their relatively low defense and the unpredictability of what spells are going to be available to them through their terrain harmony is going to undoubtedly be a turnoff for some people, they have such immense flexibility, they have incredible offensive capability, and they do have quite the concentration on some of their faces, even in their magic units. I mean, sure, this heavy magic user only has 3 cantrip, unlike most others, but it has 5 magic results on one side on a 3-point unit. That is super dope. I still think after all this time that Amazons are still one of the most unique, one of the most fascinating, and one of the most effective, not to mention one of the most fun factions to play in the whole game. Thanks for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald.